Okay, so you need a pencil, any old pencil will do, a rubber, a ruler, and some sort of pen. I like these, they're Staedtler pens. They are double-ended watercolour brush pens. One end is kind of like a watercolour brush really, and produces a bit of a thicker line, and the other one is much finer and will produce a finer line. So the first thing that you want to do is draw yourself out a bit of a grid. So that could be squares and rectangles. You could take a line for a walk. You might choose to draw out hexagonal shapes. Whatever it is that works for you, the first thing is draw out whatever your grid is going to be. So I've just gone for a simple grid of rectangles today. And once you have drawn it out in pencil and you're happy with your outline, then I would use a thicker pen to go round each of these individually. Don't worry if your lines maybe go a little bit wonky. That can kind of add to the charm of your Zentangle, and you can kind of alter things later as you begin to fill in the different sections. Okay, so when you've got your grid, you can then start to fill in the different sections. Try to think about your shapes going in different directions, so you can use a herringbone kind of pattern with diagonals. You can use a sort of crosshatch design, circles, dots, spots, anything you like. Just kind of think about an experiment and kind of go mad. You might find that some things need more practice, and you might find that some things kind of work better next to each other compared to others. I'm going to start with a simple sort of herringbone design. So I'm going to draw horizontal lines across, and then diagonal lines within this section going backwards and forwards. I tend to do it this way so that then I know I'm not doing the same pattern on the wrong lines, because I have done that before where things get a little bit mixed up. And again, don't worry if your lines aren't absolutely perfect. You can kind of neaten those up a little bit afterwards. Okay. So I'm then going to think about a different section. And thinking about a different design here. So I've got a big square here. So I need to think about how I'm going to break this up into a different idea. So I'm going to break it into twos. So I'm using dotted paper here just to help me with a little bit of a grid. Okay, so I'm going to break it up into, so I've got these squares. And within these squares, I've then got these dots in the middle. So I'm going to draw a smaller square, and I'm going to colour that in. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way along and fill the whole space in. Then once I've done that, I'm going to draw a diagonal line from the corner to the square in the middle. And it kind of, once it's all finished, you'll see it gives the idea of that it's like a box going sort of backwards. Yeah. Okay, so I've gone for two quite geometrical shapes here within the two boxes that I've filled in. They don't always have to be those. Circles work really nicely, where you've got a series of smaller circles and larger circles together as well. You could choose to have shade some of these in so that they're darker. You could choose to have these all the same size. I personally like to have them different sizes, but you will find that you end up just getting into a bit of a pattern of drawing the circles the same size over and over again, which I tend to do. And sometimes they overlap a little bit. If they do, don't worry about it. Just kind of keep doodling. This is kind of more of a therapeutic process. I find it really calming, really relaxing, and certainly in the current climate when people's anxiety might be running high, it just takes your mind off everything that's happening and just kind of allows your brain to kind of focus on other things. So now I've filled that section in. I've got this tiny section here. So here, I'm just going to do some lines close together. You could also have some further lines that are further apart. Again, creating this herringbone design where you've maybe got 3 lines at a time to kind of repeat. Some of the lines have gone a bit wobbly, but that doesn't matter. Not always the neatest, and you don't have to go straight in with pen. You could, if you felt more comfortable, start with using pencil before first and draw it out with pencil before you went in with pen. But what you want to try and kind of do is fill in the different spaces with different designs and different patterns. So you can just think about squares, triangles are a great one. You can have zigzags. You could have a bit of a sort of chevron idea as well that works quite nicely. You could have these sort of separate or sort of fill them in. You want to have a bit of a balance of some areas that are darker and some areas that are lighter than others to kind of give that contrast. And think about as well some of your patterns that have got really close together ideas being together and next to something that's maybe more open to try and give it a little bit of balance. So I'm going to have a go at just filling in a few of these spaces now a little bit more, and then we'll see how it goes from there. I think one of the best things about doing these is there's no right or wrong really. You can do pretty much whatever you like on your page, and just try things out, experiment. You'll get to know which patterns work next to which ones. You'll be able to kind of experiment with different types of line the further you get into it, and you'll get to kind of explore some of those shapes a little bit differently the further you get on. And there's loads of different ideas as well on Pinterest where you can find different ways of laying out your ideas. You can find different things that you can do. Like this was an idea that I found on Pinterest. It wasn't one that I came up with at all. And there's no kind of reinventing the wheel here. Everything is kind of already out there somewhere. But it's just about kind of just playing about really. I find quite often that I flip back to things that I have done previously. I need to finish that to look for ideas again of things that I can do, look at things that have worked, look at things that haven't worked, and just kind of get new ideas really. That was one I haven't finished just because I didn't like the 2 colour combination. I didn't think it worked at all. The pink I didn't feel worked either. I'm tending to prefer the way that the blue colours work a little bit more. So it's just kind of finding different ideas of things that can work and things that don't work, and then kind of playing around with what they are like. And really, I need to remember that talking and drawing, as I constantly tell my class, isn't something you can necessarily do very easily without things going a little bit wobbly. But like I say, that doesn't matter at all. It's just a case of giving it a bit of a go. One of the things that you might want to do is think about altering the direction of your line. So not just having horizontal and vertical lines, but having some lines that curve also. So it might be that you choose to kind of take a line for a bit of a walk to fill in a particular space like this. But then in each space, instead of going kind of like a straight line or a diagonal line, curve your line instead. So it kind of looks like a little C. Have them quite close together, and then it will make it look like that area is kind of three-dimensional. Yet again, I'm talking and drawing and not doing very well. Okay, so that's all done. What you could do if you wanted to is you could extend your doodle onto a second page so that you have like this rectangular, this double page idea like I've done here. Like I say, you can always create a hexagonal grid and put kind of different snake patterns over the top, which is one that I've kind of been exploring and found quite enjoyable to do. And you can even create a weaving idea if you want to, where it looks like your grid is like woven pieces of paper or fabric.